Don't you walk on me.
Happy New Year, everyone. Welcome to Season 9, Episode 61 of the BFC Podcast. I'm your host, Victor Lucia, founder and president of the BFC. I have some exciting news to share for 2024. We're introducing a fantastic new club benefit called Off-Season Seminars. Twice a month, join us on Zoom to connect with angling legends such as Bill Wetzel, Captain Paul Dixon, Franken Calves, and more. Plus, mark your calendars for our first meeting of the year on Friday the 12th. I'll be there, and I can't wait to catch up with everyone. Also, on the 14th, catch us at Ward Melville High School for Striper Day. This annual show is a highlight for us, and it's the only show we do all year, and this will be our 7th year in attendance. Swing by our booth and say hello. We've also added a monthly membership option and a spring run membership option. Check those out when you get a chance. For all the details on what we have planned for 2024, head over to brooklynfishingclub.com today. And if you have any questions, shoot us an email at info@brooklynfishingclub.com. And again, thank you for listening to the Brooklyn Fishing Club podcast. How did this fishing addiction start for you?
So it started really, really young. I was like 4 years old. My dad started taking me fishing. And basically anytime I drove by any piece of water, I always had like an infatuation with it. First time I would do it, it was obviously bluegills, panfish and that type of stuff, catching crappie. And then I think the fish that like sealed the deal for me was like this 8-pound catfish. It wasn't anything big, but it was huge, when I was like 4 or 5 years old, and brought it home,
Might
showed
as well
the
have been
family.
like a marlin.
The thing was huge. It was a channel cat for me, and brought it back home and showed my grandfather, and then we dug a grave for it in the backyard, and that was like
You buried it alive?
Yeah. Oh no, well, I was already dead.
I'm
but
just
like,
joking.
yeah, pretty much. I mean, we are Italian. The Italians, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, no, I'm Italian too. I totally get it. So how did the saltwater obsession start?
So my parents actually bought a cottage in Old Lyme, Connecticut, and the year after, I believe my dad bought a boat. But like before that, we were doing some fishing with our friends, and got into doing some striped bass fishing, some fluke fishing, black fishing, and my dad loved it. It was nice and relaxing for him. It was a change of pace. Growing up, we played hockey. And played hockey from like 5 years old to like 24, all the way through college. And when I wasn't playing hockey, we were fishing. And, that's what we did. When I was driving hockey, I'd be looking at the water of somebody that we were driving by and be like, hey, can we go fish that one day? Once my parents got the cottage, my dad bought a 20-foot Mako, a 1978 20-foot Mako. And we started fishing locally and right in Old Lyme, Connecticut, right near the Connecticut River. And, it took off from there. I mean, I loved it. I mean, absolutely loved fishing. I mean, ever since we were like, I think we had the cottage when we were like 8 or 9 years old. And then when I was 14, I started stealing the boat from my dad. So we'd take it out at night, and we go hit the points for some stripers, if we caught anything. If not, we at least had a good time and went back to the house and partied it up after, you know what I mean?
Hell yeah. Sounds awesome.
It was great. I mean, literally,
so
we were at the beach 24/7. So.
Oh, that's sick. At what age do you think you realized that you wanted to just make a living off fishing no matter what?
Honestly,
You think you
really late.
Oh, late. I was about to say, did you think like you knew when you were like in high school or something? Like,
So no. Honestly, I just wanted to play hockey.
yeah,
I wanted to
same with
play in
me
the NHL.
and lacrosse.
Yeah,
That was what we talked about earlier before we got on record. But yeah,
yeah, yeah.
I took a total break from fishing in high school. Like I didn't do it at all really, unless we went on like a family trip or something, or once in the summer or this and that. But I was all about lacrosse, same way you
No,
were with hockey.
yeah, no, seriously, like when I was a kid, like hockey was like my main focus, and then fishing was just like to pass the time and stay out of trouble, and I usually did it with my dad. We went fishing everywhere. I mean, and what, it was during the day for fluke and then, first light, last light and into the night for stripers. It was awesome. But yeah, when I didn't really start thinking about becoming a charter captain until I was probably 30. And I honestly I graduated from Suffolk University in Boston. I was a finance major, played hockey there. I thought I was going to be working on Wall Street, making millions of dollars.
Billions.
Um, yeah, you know what I mean? Being the Wolf of Wall Street. That did not work out. I graduated in 2008. It was, when we had that big financial collapse and no one was hiring. And so I worked odd and end jobs. And then, I started going upstate New York. And that's where I was like, well, I can do, guided trips up in upstate New York, but it's only $300 a day. And
Yeah.
I'm going to make like $20,000 a year. So I was like, that's not going to work.
Yep.
So honestly, I didn't think there was any chance to have a career in fishing until like I got a lot older, and then I looked at it again, and I was like, okay, there is an opportunity to do this full time and make some money, and make a career for myself.
So, what were some of your day jobs before chartering?
So my first job out of college, I worked for New York Life. I sold life insurance. Um, so I did that for
Like cold
roughly
calling, like in a
a
cubicle?
little bit of cold calling, a little bit of, word of
Little
mouth,
bit of
like,
warm calling.
yeah, a little bit of everything. I'd go to like different like fairs and do
Like
uh,
trade shows and shit like that?
not even like trade shows. It was like a local fair, it's like a Berlin fair or something like that.
actual fairs, like with carny
Yeah,
folk?
and yeah, pretty much.
That's crazy.
And like we would set up a booth on the outside and be like, "Hey, anyone want life insurance?" So it was pretty lame. Like I said, I did that for about a year. I was working on, I was working on getting my,
What was your biggest takeaway from that job?
uh, the biggest takeaway from that job was to never do it again.
I was about to say to never fucking do it again. Exactly.
Honestly, it was a great experience. I learned a lot about like talking to different people, and creating conversations off of nothing.
There you
which
go.
was pretty cool.
Which is what you have to do on the charter boat with new clients.
You got to have that. You got to have that elevator talk.
So
you know what I mean?
There you go. It was worth hanging out with the carny folk for a little bit.
So it was. That was my first job.
To people.
That was my first job.
I don't know if
and
that accent was appropriate. I'm gonna have to edit that out. I don't even know what that.
It's all good.
It's all good.
It's all good, right? So my second job after that, I worked for this company, Robert Half, in accounting. I worked for Accountemp, so I basically hired temporary workers for accounting and financial services. So
like workaholics.
I don't know. I've actually never watched that show. So
they're
fortunately, I haven't gotten to that episode yet. Yeah, it could be. It could be. Like I said, I was basically like a headhunter, just finding people jobs in the accounting world and finance world, and that was pretty cool. I did that for about a year. And then after that, I worked through this college. It's called Post University in Waterbury. And I was an admissions counselor there for 2.5 years, and then 5 years
cool,
I
man.
was, yeah. And then for 5 years I was the academic advisor for the finance degree.
Nice.
Yeah, for like the online department. It was cool.
So
but
that whole time, in all your spare time during that time period, were you fishing?
Oh, dude, that's the reason why I got canned from half the jobs. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, I was working, but like, it was just to kill the time during the day when I wasn't fishing. Like literally the job at Post, I fell asleep at the desk like 4 or 5 times. My coworker Chrissy,
They
she
probably
would like
thought you were on like drugs or something. You're like, no, I'm just addicted to fish.
No, they knew I was a hardcore fisherman. So, we were doing all night shifts for stripers all the time. And like, back then I was doing a lot of surf casting, when I, wasn't on the boat, and man, that just took it all out of you. You know what I mean? You out at weird hours at night and fishing certain tides and your ass kicked by the waves.
And the toll on your body, like it's unbelievable.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. So I mean, it was, my jobs that I had were all great. They were all got me to where I want to be. But to work that 9 to 5 and have to answer to somebody, I don't know if I ever want to do that again. So it's going to happen one day. It's going to happen one day.
You're saying that,
but,
so you're saying that so it doesn't happen. I know what you're doing.
I mean, I hope I don't know if I'll be able to do this for the rest of my life. I'm hoping I'm able to do it as long as I can, but you go talk to someone like John McMurray, he'll tell you how
oh, absolutely.
Terry Nugent, those guys will tell you how like demanding it is on your body, and it's brutal. It's brutal.
Yeah, John just got his fucking shoulder replaced, and by the way,
that guy's a beast, man.
By the way, to all our listeners and potential club members, we've got this thing coming up called off-season seminars where we're doing Zoom calls with all different people that have been on the podcast. And Joe, I'd love if you wanted to do that. We've got McMurray signed on. We've got Paul Dixon and Frank on calls. So
nice.
We're gonna sign
some good fishermen right there.
Yeah, man. If you want to get in on it, let me know. I mean, it's gonna be fun, and it'll be a great way to also promote your business and what you're doing. So So how good did it feel on that last day of the 9 to 5 to be like, I'm out? I'm going.
I literally did.
Or were you fucking scared? Or were you like, oh my God?
I literally did the F you, you're cool.
That's
F
awesome.
you, and I'm out.
I'm out. Yeah.
But then I gave everybody hugs after.
Fuck you, you're cool, and fuck you, I'm out.
How did you go about like making a name for yourself enough in the beginning for you to become a charter captain and even like be able to gather clients and gain clients?
Yeah. So as far as like knowing that I had enough like traction to like start a business, it took a while. So like I was planning on doing my business for like 2 years. There was the last 2 years of my job, or I should say the last 2.5, 3 years of my job, I knew I wanted to get out of there. I was like looking at prices of other captains out there, and I was like, dude, I can make this all day. And I have enough, and this goes to the question, like I have enough followers on Instagram. I think I had like 4,000 followers or like 3,000 followers on Instagram, and every day I was getting people asking me if I was a charter captain, if I was a guide, will I take them out for money? And I was like, no, because obviously you don't want to do anything illegal. And honestly, I was really, really selfish back then, and I didn't want anyone knowing my spots.
Yep.
So, but like, as far as creating a name for myself, I won Striper Cup 2 years, on the water catch and release Striper Cup 2 years. And it was back-to-back years.
Nice.
And then I had 2 years off, and then I won it a third time. Yeah, so it was really cool. That obviously helped create a big name for myself. And then, my first year guiding, I was part-time. And then that first year I was actually upstate New York, fishing on the Salmon River, and I happened to run into Jimmy Fee. And Jimmy Fee comes up to me and he goes, "Hey, Joe, how's it going?" And we're talking, we're shooting the shit. And, it's the first time I think ever had a full on conversation other than like meeting him at Striper Fest. But like, we're talking about how we're doing fishing, and he was like, "Hey man, congratulations on just starting the business. Would you ever be interested in shooting a show?" And I was like, "Yeah, let's do you want to do a Block Island?" He was like, "We'd love to." And I was like, "Okay, how does July 16th sound?" And this was like November the year before, and I was like, "I'm gonna book up, so let's get this date in the book." And that, I think I actually asked for the 14th, and they were at ICAST, so they couldn't do it, so we ended up booking like the 16th. And so I did my first episode, my first TV show ever with On the Water, and it was unbelievable. From the first drop to the last drop, we did not have a drift where we did not catch a striper. So it was incredible. And
were the cameras rolling for that?
Yeah, the cameras were rolling the entire time.
Which is usually, I find sometimes it makes it so much more difficult. I don't know. So to be able to pull that off, it's like, on camera. It's like it adds another layer of the high to the whole thing.
Yeah, it was. I'm not gonna lie. Everything aligned correctly. The weather aligned. It was supposed to be a little bit rougher than it was. Wasn't rough at all. There was a little bit of a chop, but it wasn't bad. The first drift we get out there, it was dark out. I drop down. I hook up. Chris hooks up, but drops his fish. The fish I caught was like 48 and a half, 49 pounds. And it was bouncing like between 51, but I'm not going to say that. I wasn't going to say, because it was like bouncing between 47 and 50, 51. And I was like, I'm just going to say it's 48 and a half. So
nice.
First fish was 48 and a half pounds. It was the biggest fish they ever caught in show's history at the time. Very next drift, we caught another 48 pounder. Very next drift after that, we caught like another 45 pounder. Chris doubled up on me in that one. We probably did, like, no joke, 50, 60 stripers.
That's wild.
Oh my God, that's wild. Yeah. We fished the first half of the tide. I was like, hey, the tide's going to give out. Like the last drift that we did, he caught the fish. He caught like a 45 pounder. And I was like, all right, that's a good way to end it. Let's go catch some sea bass. So we left. We caught a couple sea bass, waited for the tide to start ripping again. We went out, and very first drift, Chris hooks up again, caught like a 38 pounder. And we literally caught fish. There was not a drift where we did not catch a fish that whole entire show.
Doesn't get better than that.
No. So it was
better than that.
Yeah, it was pretty incredible.
Was that one of the, would you say that's one of the top highlights of your career?
It was definitely. I mean, it definitely, I think, put me on the map as far as like,
so you're saying that
a charter captain.
That totally helped the charter captain aspect of it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that, like, yeah,
it solidifies you. Like, it adds stripes to your chest, like a general, and
it definitely did help. I was, obviously you get pretty proud of yourself. I was hoping for a day, half as good as that. You know what I mean? And the footage that we got was just amazing. They obviously, On the Water does a phenomenal job editing. They ended up making that shit.
Are you thinking about possibly like focusing in on catching a world record?
If you asked me this question 5 years ago, I would have said yes. If you ask me this question now, probably, I mean, obviously, wherever we're fishing, we always have a really good chance of catching a really, really big fish and possibly a world record. We fish in Connecticut. That's where the world record was caught. I fish like 10 miles away from it. There's monster fish in Connecticut, and then we also fish Block Island. There's always that opportunity to catch that world record fish. Am I targeting it like I used to? No. To be honest, you can't even keep it if you did. So like, there's no point in doing it really anymore.
Right. When you used to target it though, what was different about, what you're doing now?
Tuna. Tuna has completely ruined my life. Like completely. 3 years ago, I 3 years ago, I started fishing tuna, and, cause you fish stripers for, half, like 6 months of the year, and you're like, "Oh man, dude, I don't want to see another striper again."
Right.
Um,
Right.
and it's nice, like having the break for tuna really has like kept me on my toes as far as fishing goes. Like, you know, trying to better myself as a fisherman. I don't want to say I'm the greatest striper fisherman in the world because I'm definitely not. There's a lot of people a lot better than me, but like you keep there's once you're fishing a body of water for 30 something years, like I have. I'm not saying there's only so much you can learn, but like there's only so many tastic that you want to learn. You know what I mean?
Right.
And like what you're focusing in on. And I'm not saying, obviously there's things that I can improve on, and there's obviously things that I can, learn from other people. And I learn things every single year. Um, but having that new challenge, like fishing for tuna, really, really, really has tried to, it's kept me mentally fresh. And like, it's awesome because now it's like, oh God, I get to learn a new fishery. And I'm kind of doing it on the fly, as
And
with
you
my
have to
charters.
push the limits with them.
Yeah.
I have a sick episode coming out with Alan Ellenson, who has 4 line class records for bluefin tuna. He has the 4-pound, the 6-pound, the 12-pound, the 4-pound, the 8-pound, the 12-pound, and the 20-pound line class records for
Incredible.
bluefin tuna. He would wear diapers while he was reeling them in. He would wear Depends. Like
Wow.
he even like emailed, or not emailed, because back then you couldn't email her. He contacted the IGFA and was like, is it okay if like my girlfriend like whips it out for me while I'm holding the rod and I take a piss? Like they're like, no. So that's a good episode we have coming up. Are you trailering your boat around? Like, are you traveling with it, or is it set in a marina? Or because I know you travel a lot for fishing, right? I mean, it's like
So we spend for like May and June. I'm in the Connecticut River. Okay, so I have a marina right in the Connecticut River, right in Old Lyme, and I'm there for 2 months. I actually have 2 boats, so one of the boats stays there all year, so we're able to fish there at any time. Because honestly, fishing in like Old Lyme locally is phenomenal all season long. Like I don't have to go out to Block Island if I didn't want to, or Montauk. The fishing's that good there locally, but to be able to have the opportunity to go out makes it that much better. So then in July, August, and September, I move the red boat, my bluefin. I moved that boat over to Thamesport Marina in New London. And there we're able to go fish the Rhode Island coastline. We're able to go fish Block Island, do all of our tuna trips out of there. And it's just pretty. I'm not going to say it's like driving from Point Judith, but it's pretty short ride. Obviously, it's a rough ride in the 22-footer, but it's the Red Rocket gets it done. I actually added
it always does.
It does, for the viewers and for my clients in the past, I've made it a little bit more comfortable this year. Santa brought a couple different cushions for them.
Thank you, Santa.
Yeah. So they should be pretty happy this year. They're gonna have a couple nice places to sit. It's becoming a little bit more of a wine and cheese boat than it has been.
I gotta ask you this: have you fished middle ground a lot?
No. I've actually never fished it. So like,
really?
No. So like, my territory is basically from like the farthest I go is like Clinton, Connecticut, and I'll go fish to like the Gut, or like maybe just west of the Gut. I go to Montauk, I go to Block, and then I go all the way to Point Judith, and then all the way back to Clinton. So whole area.
I had to ask because I grew up fishing like middle ground and Fairfield Beach and that side of the sound. There was this one time my dad had like a 21-foot cobia, like little boat, and the waves were insane. And I think it was right around the time Perfect Storm came out, and I had read the book by Sebastian Younger, or whatever his last name is, Younger, or whatever the fuck. And I saw the movie and I was like obsessed with it. and he was letting me drive the boat, and we were like literally driving head on into these fucking waves that were coming over the bow. And I'm like, we got to get to middle ground. I remember my dad grabbing me by the back. I think I was like 15 or 14 years old. Grabbed me by the back of the neck, sat me down in the passenger seat of the shit. And he was like, you're out of your fucking mind, like old Italian guy.
Those are the memories that you won't ever forget, man.
And he just whipped the boat around in these giant waves and somehow maneuvered we were going out to middle ground, like we were in the middle of the sound, and these were pretty big fucking waves. I know I was a kid, so they seem bigger in my memory, but
hey, anything going over the top of the boat is a big.
It was going over the top.
It
was going over the top, and it did it about 3 or 4 times, and my dad just tossed me like straight into the passenger seat and somehow maneuvered the boat around, and then he just like surfed us home, and
I completely agree, man. I had the same exact experience with my dad growing up. I mean, I'll never forget it. I'll remember it clear as day. I had to be like 13 or 14 years old, and we went to Millstone Outflow in Niantic, and we're fishing albies, and it's like October, and it's flat calm. I mean, where we're fishing, it's flat calm, and we're slaying albies, and my dad's like, it's really, really windy out here. And the only reason why we're not getting hit is because we're protected. But the second we go past Black Point, we're going to be screwed, Joe. And I'm like, well, we'll figure it out as we get, as we go. Come on, Dad, we're catching them. Yeah. And he's like, all right, yeah. I mean, literally, we probably caught like 75 albies that day. It was pre-hurricane conditions, like unbelievable. Those things were eating every single cast. And we're going back through, we're fine all the way till we got to Black Point, and it was wind against tide. And my dad goes, go right up to the tip of the boat. And I go, okay. And he goes, duck down and try to keep your feet on the ground. So I'm like, my ass is on the ground. My knees are all tucked up. I'm almost like, I don't want to say fetal position, but I'm kind of like on my knees. And my dad's just hitting these waves. And he's boom, boom, and you see the waves just going right over the top of you.
Flying
and I'm like
I'm
laughing at my father. His glasses are going flying. He's hitting his face all over the center console. God. He gets through it, and like I'm screaming, "Woo! Yeah, this is awesome!"
Yeah,
and like,
we could never die.
He's sitting there like, soaking wet, like beat up, bruised. He literally chipped his tooth. Like it was horrible. It was horrible. And I was loving it because I'm in the front. The waves are going right over the top of me. I didn't get wet once. And it was all for albies, man. I mean,
catch fish or die trying, baby.
Those fish will do it to you.
They definitely will, especially when you're hitting them on every cast. Like you just can't leave. It's like being addicted to a drug. You just can't stop. You're just like, I don't care about the consequences of this incoming hurricane in our as long as we can catch 75 albies between 2 people. I'm fucking ready to die. Fuck it.
Me and the old man have had some good times out there. We've had some close calls.
Yeah.
Questionable decisions, but we've always made it back. So,
that's the important part.
I'm a little bit safer on my charters. Honestly.
Yeah, side note, guys, he is much safer on the charters, okay? Just for the record.
If we're fishing
he's not going to make you duck and cover in the bow of the boat. You guys are going to have to go lay down in the bow. As I just blast through these 8-footers.
I'm sure a couple of my clients have kind of felt that way. There's some days where, obviously that weather kicks up a little bit sooner than it's supposed to, or it just does out of nowhere.
Yep.
And, having, especially tuna fishing, having one of the smallest boats in the fleet, sometimes you just got to stick it out until it calms down. So, you're already out there. You can't go back. You just got to ride it out until it calms down and then go back in when it's a little bit safer.
Yeah, that's all you can do. I mean, I literally almost died going to the Bacardi wreck, and the guy on the tuna podcast, Alan, that I mentioned before, he brought up the Bacardi wreck, and I haven't heard that name in years, and it like triggered like, dude, we almost fucking died, bro. They predicted 5 mile an hour winds, and by 6 o'clock in the morning, that shit was about 4 to 5 feet high with the waves, and it was just building, and the sun was just coming up, so it's still a little cold, and he kept pushing on to the fucking Bacardi wreck, even though we were marking bait. And I know people that are listening are going to be like, I think he's told this story like a bunch, but I don't even give a fuck. This shit scarred me for life. We went over one wave that was probably 15-footer, came down in the trough. It was probably like a 25-footer that we went over. And when we went over the 25-footer down to the other trough, it was as high as a street light. It must have been 40 feet in the air. It blocked out the sun, and I didn't have any other thought in my head except, damn, that's a big fucking wave. And then he just plowed the fucking boat. He floored it, the 37 Jupiter, through the wave like a goddamn torpedo. And it bent the outriggers back. It blew out the glass in front of us. I was the only one with my full Grundens on and everything. Everybody else was like in their flip-flops, summer fishing. The two guys behind me that were in seats were like floating. The whole boat was filled with water. The captain looks at me after we got up through the wave and there were no more big waves behind it. And he just goes, ha, 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 and fucking laughs like a psychopath in my face. I have whiplash at this point because the plexiglass in front of me blew out. Like my fucking neck flipped back like crazy.
Holy
and
cow.
the guy, he yells back to the two guys behind us, who are floating and holding on to the boat. And he goes, open the fucking tuna doors. And they float over and they pop open the tuna doors, and he floored the boat and drained it. And it was fucking crazy. We kept fishing because we still had an EPIRB and we still had a ship-to-shore handheld radio that we could call the Coast Guard with that was working. And we only had more bad luck from there. We caught one baby bluefin tuna for the entire day. Oh, and it was the captain's birthday, by the way. And
God, what a birthday present.
Yeah, great birthday present. And so this was my first time tuna fishing, and these guys weren't listening to me for shit. I was trying to throw in, what I thought to do in the moment. Like wherever I go on the planet to fish, I try to notice what to do to catch the fish, Anyway, big brown shark's dorsal fin comes out of the water behind, right behind the motor, and it was up for about 5 seconds. And I said, guys, there's a big shark coming into the spread. It's right there. They're like, yeah, whatever. They didn't even look at it. I watched the fin go down. I'm like, okay. Fucking literally 30 seconds later, the shark is chewing through the entire spread. It chewed off everything. The teasers, everything. It destroyed probably over $1,000 a tackle.
Well, that's why you should be jigging.
I was just like, I told you guys there was a fucking shark there. Like, I don't know what to tell you, but, and then of course we get back to the dock, and he's like, yeah, we're really lucky we're on land right now because I also did not have a life raft on the boat. So I'm like, dude, I am never fishing with you again, like ever.
Jesus, that's
Scary.
scary.
That was probably the closest call I've had on the ocean to death. And the funniest thing to me about it is that, people always say like life flashes before your eyes, or I think you just have one last dumbass thought. That's fucking it.
Probably.
Unless you're like fortunate enough to like die peacefully, with your family around you or something like that. I'm not trying to get dark, but like if you die in like a freak accident, I'm pretty sure the last thing you think of is like, oh damn, that's a car coming at me. That was my only thought. I was like, oh, that's a big ass wave. It could have been totally smoked. But oh my god,
That's
anyway,
awesome.
yeah,
That's a cool story, man. That's a cool story.
It's all about getting back to the docks. So
that's it.
you know,
That's it. You got to make it back there in one piece. Doesn't matter how you do it. It sounds like the captain did his job. So
he did his
probably should have
job.
did it a little bit safer.
It was his birthday trip. You know, it was like a friend's trip. Like you said, throwing money for gas. So I was like, damn,
Give him a free pass,
I've
right?
never been tuna fishing before. So, but I didn't pay him for that gas for like almost a month because I was debating like not even doing it because he almost killed me. But that's a whole other story.
That's crazy.
So what's your favorite way to target stripers, and how do you know when to use which bait and when and on what
so like
but what's your personal favorite way to get at them?
I guess if you had to ask me like 6-7 years ago, I probably would have said three-weighing bunker, three-weighing scup, three-weighing, eels. Now,
when you say three-weighing, what exactly do you mean?
So using a conventional rod, you have a three-way swivel. So one swivel goes to your line, one swivel goes to a sinker, and then one swivel, your last swivel has like a leader on it.
Okay, gotcha.
With a hook on the end,
and then you rotate your bait. Yeah.
Yeah, and then whatever bait you're deciding to use. It's still a tactic I use, quite often. But
I mean, it's a very popular tactic.
Dude, it's very popular. I mean, that's how Greg Myerson caught his world
so
record.
fucking effective. Exactly.
Yeah. And the cool thing about three-weighing is you never know what you're going to get. You know what I mean? You can catch a fluke, a sea bass. I mean, I caught a fucking redfish, a three-weighing, a live bunker in Old Lyme, Connecticut.
Really?
Go figure that. Yeah.
When was that? What time of the year?
I think it was June, like 4th or 5th or something like that. Can't remember, to be honest. But
what was the size on it? Was it decent?
39 inches.
Get the fuck out of here.
39 inches. And the crazy thing about it was, so I was out striper fishing. I actually called into where I wasn't feeling, like working, the rest of the day. So I literally go to my boss. I go, boss, I don't feel good. I don't feel like working. I'm just going to go home and take the rest of the day. And I left at like 10 o'clock, drove straight to the beach, literally got in the car, drove straight to the beach, got on my boat, went and cast netted a shit ton went and straight out to, I had eels. I was fishing eels at first. And then I went straight out to Hatchett's Reef, and there was 2 huge bunker balls out there. So I was like, oh shit, bunker. And back then you could snag and drop. So I snagged a couple bunker, pull them in. Nothing was eating them as I was pulling them in. So I put one on a hook and I dropped down and I immediately get hit. I'm like literally fishing right off the side of the bunker ball, the bunker pod. And I'm sitting there and I get hit and it was like thump, and it was like a hard striper bite. I set the hook and I miss him. I reel up and I got like just the only thing I had left was the head. And I'm like, what was that? There's no way that was a striper or not a striper. Like, no way it's a bluefish. That thing was just too big. It was a different type of hit. How the bluefish kind of peck at it a little bit. This was just a solid like thump, and like half of the whole thing was gone. So I snag another bunker, reel it in, put it on the hook, drop down. I'm on the same bunker pod. All of a sudden I get hit. I said, I'm let him take it for another one. Another one, bam, set the hook, and I'm fighting this fish, and the thing's just screaming. And I'm like, holy cow, this thing's huge. This has got to be like a high 40-pounder, maybe even 50-pounder. I reel it in, and it's like silverishly red. And I'm like, what the heck is that? And I get it close, and I go, oh, my God, it's a fucking redfish. And I'm like, I'm by myself, and I'm like going nuts. And so I literally scoop it out. I never have a net on board. This is the other crazy thing. I never have a net on board. My dad decided to go fishing earlier that morning for 2 hours, like 8 o'clock to like 10 o'clock for fluke. And he had the net in the front of the boat. I didn't take the net out. I usually take it out and leave it at the dock. I had the net in front of the boat to net the redfish. I net it. I go, oh my God. I get it inside the boat. I'm sitting there. I put the fish on my boga and I'm having it sit there like on the outside of my boat. And I'm going, and I call my buddy up, Justin Wiggins, and I go, who works for the state of Connecticut, DEP. And I'm like, Justin, I know there is a East Coast, thing that you can only keep redfish from a certain point, a certain length. Does this apply for Connecticut? And he goes, it's not in the rule book. And I go, so can I keep this and claim it as a record? And he goes, yeah. And I go, all right. So I yank it in the boat. I call my wife, who was down the beach. It was like a Friday afternoon. She was already down the beach. I go, hey, go get me like 3 bags of ice. I want to fish a little bit longer. And so I go meet her at the beach. She throws like 3 bags of ice on the boat. And I ended up fishing like for 10 more hours. And I caught like 2 dink bass. Totally not worth it. So
yeah,
I went back home. Yeah. I mean, it was perfect tides, perfect everything. There was no stripers around, but
and
I guess
they usually
redfish.
travel in schools. I mean, there could have been more.
So that's what's the whole thing is I lost the pod after I did all that. I lost the pod of fish, so I couldn't get back on them. But I do believe it was a whole school of redfish that were actually on these pods of bunker.
Wow.
Which was pretty cool. So I went in the next morning. I weighed my fish. It was like 19 and a half pounds. But when I caught the thing, I swear to God, it was probably like 25 pounds. It was like 14 hours later after I caught it. It was huge.
So
when I say huge,
so is it the state record now?
So it was the state record for about 3 weeks. And then the state of Connecticut rescinded it because there was that East Coast rule. So instead of giving me a ticket,
bullshit.
Instead of giving me a ticket, they took away my record. But I do have a record saying I have the state of Connecticut redfish. I have the piece of paper, which was pretty cool. But and then it was pretty cool the next year in the rule book.
That so I can so they had to change the rule book because of you.
Yeah, they literally changed the rule book.
A lot of the guys I've had on the past podcasts, I would say actually, the last, including you, 5 guests, they've all had rule books changed because of them.
Yeah, well, I'm sure there'll be a couple other rules changed because of me, but whatever. Whatever. I won't bring those up because I don't even want people talking about that.
That's so crazy though. So do you think you'll see that again? Like, do you think that's going to become a thing?
I mean, it's been like 7 years since I caught that fish. So, and I haven't seen any other ones, and I haven't heard of anyone's catching a redfish previously or after that in Connecticut. But you never know. You have all these cobia coming up here. You have all these different species.
Tarpon.
My buddy Brian Seville he hooked up with a tarpon off of Black Point.
Wow.
So yeah, he hooked it on an eel, like a jig and a soft plastic.
What?
Yeah, jig and a soft plastic eel, and just smashed it.
It jumped him or something. He didn't
jumped
land
him. Yeah.
How big did he estimate it to be?
I think he said it was like a smaller one, like 80 pounds or something like that.
That's
70, 80.
That's a nice one, man.
Yeah, those ones are the toughest ones. Those and a little bit smaller are the toughest ones to catch. I feel like the bigger ones, they just dog you. And obviously they jump like crazy, but it's part of a different beast. You're not expecting that when you're fishing Black Point, Niantic Black Point.
That is crazy. I mean? That is crazy.
Yeah.
I've heard of tarpon being caught in, I don't know what those traps are called, but I guess just fish traps, but on the north shore of Long Island. I've heard of them being caught for years, and it's just been like a secret. Once every 6 or 7 years, you hear somebody hooking one in Niantic, like literally in Niantic. And I think it has to do with the outflow, the Millstone power plant. It's a warm water discharge. So crazy that they're coming up this far north.
Yeah, I think some guy that we knew, that I know, he actually passed, unfortunately. But he was spear gun Millstone outflow, and he was catching mangrove snappers there.
Really?
So,
Wait,
you know, like I said,
where was he catching mangrove snappers?
he was spear gunning mangrove snappers inside a Millstone outflow in Niantic, Connecticut.
That's amazing.
Yeah. It's
times
like I
they
said,
are changing, man. There, before you know it, there's going to be a whole red fishery that you're going to be able to tap into, and you're not going to have to look at striped bass for the entire season.
That would be beautiful.
You're going to be like,
get a couple
you're going to be like in May.
More cobia.
I've noticed the cobia because I've seen some big. I haven't landed one yet, but I've had some really big follows. Just fucking giants. Like I'm talking pushing 50, 70 pounds.
Yeah.
And they only come around for like 2 weeks in August, maybe 2 to 3 weeks, depending on how hot it is. But around New York City, I mean, guys are getting cobia. It's crazy. Like big fucking cobia. So it's only,
that's crazy.
You know, but I've also heard from scuba divers who actually have scuba dived under the Coney Island Pier, like old scuba divers that like go out and spearfish with, with an air tank. Like they're not free diving or anything. They're going out and hunting food, and they've speared and shot cobia under the Coney Island Pier in August. And they told me they've been doing it for over a decade. So, I mean, I think bigger fish are moving up. I don't know. Who knows what's going to happen?
I mean, the fish are definitely moving. The fish are definitely moving.
They're definitely moving.
Here in Connecticut, I was talking to the same biologist, and he was telling me there's like a 3-degree different water change in like the past 25 years. I mean, when I was a kid, sea bass limits in Connecticut were like 25 or 30, and you'd go out and you catch maybe one or two sea bass a year. You know, now you go out and you catch like 30,000 sea bass a day. And the limits are like 3 per person. I mean, geez, in like Rhode Island, I don't know. Rhode Island has a great fishery, beautiful fishery. Their management people do a great job. I just wish they would open up the sea bass fishing a little bit earlier. In June, because like I don't think they opened it until like July 1st last year or something like that. Or if they did open it, it was like 2 per person or something like that. So it wasn't even worth it. But I mean, and I run a catch and release charter, which is, crazy. I run a 100% catch and release like striper charter. And, my part of my sales pitch is when we do the Block Island trips, hey, let's go catch like some sea bass after. So this way you have some good meat to go home with. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
And it's just not like, because I'm not against people keeping fish. It's, the reason why I do catch and release stripers is because that's my livelihood. Fishing's the only business. Like fishing's the only business where captains kill off their asset. It's the only business where anyone kills off their asset.
That's a great way to put
and depletes it. And like, there's no way of bringing those fish back. You know what I mean? Like, and that's the one thing I give everybody all the credit, to the captains out there. This is not a tough job, and getting clients and having, good clients come back and back. It's a tough job, and you got to do it any way that you can. And so I get, running a, catch and keep charter, and more power to people that do it. But like, we're killing off our only asset. You know what I mean?
It's like the same thing I was talking about with another podcast guest we have coming up, Tim Choate, who is one of the co-founders of the Billfish Foundation. He introduced circle hooks to the bill fishing game and got rid of the J hooks and totally increased the longevity of any fish that was hooked and caught. This is what the problem he ran into, because he had 4 different lodges, and one was in Costa Rica, and they were exporting literally just exporting billfish as to get made into dog food, like whatever.
Yeah.
And he had a lodge there. He paid a lot of people in the government to get a lodge there. He did a lot of things, but the guy cares so much about billfish that because the Costa Rican government would not listen to him and stop exporting billfish, he sold the lodge and left. and never gave them
Wow.
any more business. Like, because it's just like you're killing your own assets. And that's why Guatemala and Costa Rica are pretty fucking close together. Guatemala, the sail fishing is off the charts. I went there. I'm going back there in a week. I mean, the last time I was there with 4 people, we had 63 sailfish in 3 days. And the big Pacific sails, like some of them are 10 feet, 170 pounds,
Holy cow.
But you go down a little further south to Costa Rica, you can't catch a fucking sailfish. They've killed them all. They've killed them all.
You know,
so
that's what a lot of the guys say about the fish at Montauk. You know what I mean? Montauk growing up for me, it was like, it was a treat going out there. You go out there and you'd catch like 40 pounders every drift. It was insane. It didn't matter what time of the year it was.
Yeah, with like 4 anglers on board, everybody on a 40.
Yeah. It was insane. I'm not saying Montauk isn't good anymore, because it definitely has its time and moments.
Definitely.
But like, I don't even run my charters at Montauk because it's not worth it. You know what I mean? It's not worth my time and energy going over there. I'd rather just go to like Block or like other places local to me, because the fishing really is much better, much better.
And Montauk
and
is
much
such
more
a
consistent.
It's such a tourist shit show. Like I've done multiple trips to Montauk with the BFC, and we've had a lot of fun at Montauk. I love Liar's Saloon, one of my favorite bars in the world. I could drink those dollar beers and their mudslides and just hit on trailer park trash bitches all night there and stare at the Polaroids. Like, I love Montauk, but you go out on the boat and it's a fucking shit show. There's guys trolling over each other. There's no etiquette.
Yeah.
It's a bunch of fucking weekend warriors that are even weekend warriors during the week. It's a fucking shit show.
It is crazy. I mean, you have some really, really good captains out of there and some great fishermen.
Definitely. And I want to put it on record. I am not bashing Montauk. I love it.
No. And I don't want to I want to put it out there too. I'm not either. It's just not what it used to be.
Yeah.
Like I said, I just think, in talking to a lot of the surf guys, especially, my good buddy, Pete Ustage, Smiling Tan Man on Instagram, like the dude is a fishing maniac, and like, he loves fishing Montauk, and he's like, dude, it's not even worth going out there anymore. It's like, it's good for like a week or so, and then it's like brutal, and then like 5 months later it's really, really good for like a half a week or 3 or 4 days, and then it's brutal again. He's like, it's like, there's places local that are much easier to fish, and it's not as bad, and it's sad,
much more enjoyable to fish.
Well, some of the spots.
I mean, when you're fishing block, I feel like you have a good amount of territory to cover, right? Unless it's like everybody's piled up on a school or
yeah. There's a lot of different spots to fish out of block.
Do you do any fluke fishing off block?
So I used to, when I grew up, that's all me and my dad did. We did actually more fluke fishing and striper fishing growing up. Like, we both have double digit flukes, 11, 12 pounds, and like really, really big fluke. And we like won all these tournaments growing up. But I stopped fluke fishing probably 12 years ago. Like, just because I did it so much. If I had more time, I would love to do it again. But everybody, all my clients, I get maybe 2 or 3 guys a year, maybe 4 or 5, maybe 5 guys a year that like, hey, do you run any like fluke trips? And I'm like, no. And they're like, why? I'm like, because I haven't fluke fished in a long time. I know all the spots. I know how to do it.
Yeah.
We used to be really, really good at it. I would love to get into a little bit more, but like, every day that I go fluke fishing, I'm not on stripers. And for me, every day fishing for that fish just keeps you dialed in on them.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
It's like taking a day off from practice or something.
Exactly. So like, so like, that kind of goes back to your world record question. Like, am I doing the world record thing like I was? I wanted to beat Greg so badly. Like, and like, I love Greg. He's one of my good buddies. I actually talked to him like 4 or 5 days ago. We're going center pinning for like trout.
He's all about the trout now.
He loves it, man. He loves it.
I don't know if you know, but he's been on the show.
Yeah, I know. I've listened to the podcast.
It was such a good one. He is such a fucking character. I want to hang out
I'll
with
tell
that
you what,
dude.
man, he is probably one of the nicest guys, and I owe a lot of my fishing career, and like getting my name out there, to him.
I hear you.
You know,
Everybody has that one guy or a couple guys that help you with that. Like I feel like
yeah, a mutual buddy of mine.
Crazy Alberto totally helped me with that for myself.
Yes.
Also, in terms of being able to talk to like the legends of Miami that we have coming out in this season, I have to shout out Peter Miller because
nice.
He totally brought me into the fold early on. I mean, he was buying our first shirts when we were still selling them on Teespring.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
He's been literally supporting me since day one. So shout out to Pete. Shout out to Al. I mean, you said you had a interesting seminar with, was it Al and Greg Meyerson?
The Alberto and Greg story. The seminar that I did with Alberto and Greg was just phenomenal. So like it happened that Alberto and Greg were set for the same exact times that I was. And Greg comes up to me and goes, why are the three of us at the same time on the same day at this time? Why are we doing this? And we're like pretty similar times every day. Why are we doing this? He's like, let's just do the seminars together. And I'm like, I'll do whatever you guys want to do. I mean, I'm the nobody here. You guys are a legend.
Like, I'll literally
you guys
do
are legends.
whatever you ask me to do.
Alberto's like, yes, this is awesome. This is like groundbreaking. The three of us together. I'm like, this would be so good for me. That's what's going in the back of my head. It's
Fuck yeah, dude. You're like, this is my moment. I'm
really going to do a podcast with the world record stripe holder.
Like, this is my fucking Super Bowl.
Ever. Yeah.
Awesome.
So we did that together. Obviously I had a chance to fish with Greg, but that was the first time I really got to pick Alberto's brain. He got to pick my brain. He was asking me like, what tides do I like to fish in certain different areas? What do I look for? And I'm like, bunker. Live bunker, the dock. I throw the dock. And he was like, how about bucktails? Do you like bucktails? I'm like, I've never thrown a bucktail in my life. And he was like, whoa, hold on. You've never thrown a bucktail in your life? And still to this day, I think I've thrown a bucktail. The most I've bucktailed in my life is down in Florida. Trying to catch tarpon off those jetties.
Yeah.
Other than that, I don't bucktail here in Connecticut. Like when I'm surf casting or I'm out on the boat, like a lot of the areas that we're fishing, I don't bucktail. Like there's more productive plugs and I'm going to catch bigger fish using like a darter or, a topwater lure like a dock. I mean, that's the absolute best way to catch them is like topwater. You get those explosions. So
nothing better.
I had a chance to,
nothing better.
No, it's phenomenal. So I was trying to explain that to, Al, and he's going into it on a different level. I mean, Al just takes, there's a normal fisherman the way you think, and you're like, okay, the reason, the bait's coming out of this river, so I need to be here and fish, the whole outgoing tide. And Al's like, Al's the type of guy that will be like, all right, so we need to be there for this window. That's going to be a 35 to 45 minute window. There's going to be blue crabs coming out there. We're going to need to have a blue Danny out here. We're going to need to be fishing this exact slot because this is where they're going to be during this slot of the tide. You're going to push in. And he had like this whole scientific background where me and Greg are like, yeah, we find a rock and we fish over it.
Greg's just I like lobsters.
Greg was like, let me tell you about the story. I was fishing naked. So, and we had a chance to talk about the rattle sinker and why that works. Pardon me. So we had I was sponsored by Greg, and I still am. And I still am a huge believer in any type
that's
of rattle
awesome.
or sound.
That's so cool. I didn't know you were sponsored by him. That's so sick.
Yeah, no, Greg's been a good buddy of mine. I can actually say I had a chance to fish with Greg once. I did outfish Greg, so I have that under my belt. I was pretty pumped about that.
I've outfished Alberto several times. He doesn't
awesome.
He doesn't even listen to the fuking show, so I don't give a fuck. I'm just gonna tell you. Well, I'll tell you one thing. The one time I've outfished him a couple times. The one time I thought I was gonna outfish him, we were fishing a reservoir north of New York City, and I had 11 bass, and he had 3. But his third and final one before we were closing up was like 9 pounds. and I was just like, yeah, no, can't outfish him. He's fucking unstoppable.
when I've had the pleasure of fishing with Al a couple times, he likes to do a lot more watching of what I'm doing and see how we're doing. Like that's the one
let
thing.
Let me ask you this: does he critique the shit out of you? Does he like?
He doesn't. He didn't really critique the shit out of me, but he did. He did try to. He did tell me some stuff.
To me. I mean, he is like.
He wasn't that bad.
He's been really tough on me. I don't know. He's kind of become, somewhat of a mentor to me, and he's
the best, man.
He's been real fucking tough on me, but at the same time, like, he's like one of my best friends. So I love you, Al. It's like that scene in Old School where what Frank the Tank is getting married. He's like, I love you, Dad.
I'll tell you. So I had a pleasure of fishing with Alberto down in Florida. I want to say like 4 or 5 years ago. And so I went and fished with him. It was the coldest day. So it was like 30 degrees. It was like February. And he was like, hey, you want to, like, there's really nothing we can fish for other than like the largemouth bass. So we went and fished for some largemouth bass the first day. And, we caught a couple small ones, nothing really crazy. It was really, really cold. He goes, hey, what are you doing tomorrow? And I go, nothing. I go, I'm supposed to be hanging out with the family, but I can tell him I have to miss this to hang out with you.
Yeah. That's what happens.
Alberto says he wants to fish.
If Alberto says he wants to fish,
you drop everything.
Yeah, you drop everything.
You drop everything.
Drop everything. Wife has to understand. The kid has to understand. Everybody has to understand.
And she understood. Everyone got it. So
God bless her, because some of the women I've dated do not understand the Alberto effect, where he says, I'm coming over for a couple days. Next thing, he's there for 2 weeks. You've been fishing hardcore. He's been making a ton of fucking great sushi every night. And at the same time, it's like, how long is he staying for, hon? Well, I don't know. He keeps telling me he's leaving tomorrow, but I don't care. He could live here for all this. I fucking give a fuck.
When the legend says he's staying, he stays. So
exactly.
And that was the same thing like with me. So like we met at like 7:30 in the morning, 8 o'clock in the morning. I met him to go do the largemouth bass thing, and we're fishing for a couple hours. And he goes, man, Joe, you feel that like sun? That sun's poking through and it's pretty hot. He goes, he looks at the weather. He goes, you want to take a ride and go try to catch a clown and a couple snakeheads? And I go, what? And he goes, oh yeah. I go, oh yeah, let's go. He goes, all right, it's gonna be a far ride, about 2.5 hour ride. I go, I'll do whatever you want, Al. You jump in his car.
You had to drive through Alligator Alley.
Yep. Had to drive through Alligator Alley.
That's what I did with him on my first trip. He picked me up at the Fort Myers airport, and he's like, you ready to roll? I'm like, yep. He's like, what do you want to catch? I'm like, whatever the fuck you do.
Yep, that's exactly what I said. So he was like, let's go catch snakehead and clowns. So we went across.
That's what he said to me too.
It was crazy. We were like, we're going across an Alligator Alley, and he looks over at me. He goes, listen, it's really, really cold out. This is like the worst time of the year to catch snakehead and like clowns. He goes, but there is a chance. And he's like, the only chance that we'll have right now is if these lizards come out to sunbathe themselves. And we're going to have like a 35-minute window, and they should bite 5 to 10 minutes after they come out. And I'm like, Oh yeah, okay, whatever you say, Al. We're gonna base our whole entire day on lizards. So,
On lizard activity.
on lizards.
Yeah.
Lizard activity. So like he's like, and it's only gonna happen in the late hours of the day when it's really, really hottest, but then the sun's gonna start to go down. And I'm like, oh, okay, Al. Like I'm just, I'm usually just about putting the bait in the water.
You just have to trust.
You
You
know,
just
and
have to
trying.
trust and believe because he knows.
Yeah.
He knows.
I trusted and believe. Trust me, I believed him. But like, we're really gonna do lizards. So I was like, okay. So we were going across, and all of a sudden we get there. The first spot we get to, he goes, "Hey, what do you think about this spot?" I go, "It's pretty windy and cold over here." He goes, "Yeah, too windy and too cold." And he's like quizzing me, asking me how I think about this spot. Should we fish this spot? And he told me what we should be looking for. So we go to the second spot. All of a sudden, he goes, we see a fish jumper, and I go, "Oh, there's a fish right there." He goes, "Oh, that's a good sign." He goes, "It's still pretty windy over here, don't you think, though?" I go, it is windy. It's gonna be tough, presenting correctly." It's like, all right. So we go to the third spot. Third spot is just like shit again. Fourth spot we get to, it was dead calm, hot sun, and like, you could feel the sun.
Was it on a little? Was it on a little bridge?
I have no idea. I honestly can't remember.
Good answer, because Alberto will literally threaten to kill you if you give up spots.
Can't remember. Anything.
He has told me that he will not just put sugar in my gas tank. He will bypass my gas tank. He said
you can't give up other people's spots.
He will put sugar in my wife's gas tank.
you can't give up other people's spots. I mean,
no
way.
Right. No. I wasn't asking for the specific spot. I just want to know if it was on a bridge.
Honestly, I have no idea.
There's a lot of bridges down here in Florida.
Yeah, there's a couple, but like I honestly can't even remember. It was like 7-8 years ago, or 6 years ago. Can't remember what I did yesterday. Never mind that long ago. But we get to the spot where it's warm to touch on the skin. There's no wind. All of a sudden, you see this fish jump. And he's like, I'm like, "Let's fish. This is it." And he's like, "All right, let's go." And sure enough, we're sitting there. All of a sudden, we get hit. I catch like a bullhead. He caught a small peacock. And then he goes, "Oh God, Joe, look, there they are." And there was like 3 or 4 lizards that came up to sunbathe themselves. He goes, "Get ready. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. This is what we waited for the past hour." And I'm like, okay, sounds good. So not even like 4 minutes later, my bobber goes down. I set the hook. All of a sudden, this big ass clown comes jumping up backwards out of the water. And I'm like, oh God, this is sick.
I love when they jump.
All of a sudden, I drop it. I drop the fish. And he looks at me. He goes, "Oh my God, what did you do? That was our chance. This could be the only opportunity." I go, "Listen, I'm just happy I got a hit. And I'm more happy I'm fishing with you. So I really don't care." You know what I mean? So all of a sudden we set everything back up again.
You didn't feel like you had to impress him at all?
No, I'm just, dude, I just wanted to fish with the guy. Like, this is like a guy I've looked up to forever.
Okay,
and it's like fishing with like.
Yeah, no, I know. I know what you're saying, but I don't know.
I don't want to impress. I don't care about impressing anybody. Honestly,
the first time I fished with him, I was nervous to fish with him. I'm like, I don't, like, God forbid this guy ends up thinking I'm a fucking Guggen. Like I felt like I was under pressure to perform. Like,
no, I don't. Honestly, you're going to make mistakes. I've always like figured you're going to make mistakes no matter what. As long as you're a nice person, you're good to have a conversation with.
Yeah.
Someone's going to want to fish with you again. Right. So I was more worried about not him being concerned that I'm a good fisherman. I was just worried about him asking me to go again. So, like I said,
well, he was also putting me under a little bit of pressure because he's from New York City. I mean, he's from Queens. I mean, sorry, he's from the Lower East Side. But there was a little bit more pressure of him being like, "Oh, you're Mr. Brooklyn Fishing Club? Oh, okay. Like let's see if you know what the fuck you're doing out here." And all I could do was do my best. And I remember going out to Sebastian Inlet with him and just fucking having an insane night. I remember him he's smoking his Pall Mall. He points at this one, we're all the way at the end of the pier, Sebastian. He points at this one little rip, like I'm talking like a 2.5 foot rip, and he goes, in 2 hours, I'm going to catch a 50-pound redfish right there. He goes, go catch me some ladyfish. So I go catch him some ladyfish, and he literally did it. I have the picture. It wasn't a 50-pounder. It was in the high 40s. It was almost the size of his fucking body. I just felt honored to be pier netting fish for him. And then at the time I was so hardcore into one of the rules of the club, which is picture didn't happen, you know. And I hooked a fucking 6-foot nurse shark, and I'm trying to convince Al to drop the pier net. I'm like, Al, no one's gonna believe it, because I don't know. I've caught nurse sharks now since then, but that was the first. This fucking thing was big. I'm like, dude, just put the net in. Like, I'm trying to convince him. He's like, you're fucking crazy. You're fucking crazy.
No way.
That thing's gonna destroy your net.
That they would have made.
I'm like, all right, I got it to the leader at least. He's like, all right, cut the fucking leader. You caught it. I'm like, I need a picture. He's like, shut the fuck up. Do you think that like sharks and seals have become more of an issue?
I mean, where I'm fishing, there are definitely a lot more sharks. You know, are they an issue? I don't know, to be honest. I mean, I'm not a biologist. We do get sharked a couple times a year.
Yeah.
It's definitely more than it was growing up. There's no doubt we're catching a lot more of them locally.
You think it's getting worse?
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely a lot more than it was. I mean, you can't keep brown sharks. Before, back in the day, you used to be able to keep them. You can't keep them anymore. So the population's booming.
Damn.
There's a ton of them around.
Ton of bunker for them to eat.
There's I mean, this year was kind of an off year for bunker around us, but yeah, definitely. I mean, that's another thing. As you know, as we went back to before, the water has changed, the climate has changed. You know, when I was growing up, there was bunker around, but not like there's bunker around today. You know, it's crazy. You could walk on bunker in the Connecticut River at certain points. Versus back in the day, you know, it was all eels and porgies. There was no real bunker in the rivers. You know, every once in a while they'd be there for a couple of weeks or a month, and then they get out of there. But you know, as far as seals go, there are definitely more seals around. They're not. We hook one a year. I hook one a year. It's at the mouth of the river. There's a couple there. Other than that, I really don't see that many of them.
When you say you hook one, do you mean you actually hook one?
Yeah, so you'll catch a striper on top water, and all of a sudden you'll be reeling it in, and then it feels like 1,000,000 pounds just hit you like a freight train, and the thing just starts screaming line, you know, steadily, and you're like, "Oh, what just happened?" So
it's like getting hooked on bottom while trolling.
Dude, this is the greatest story. This is like cue the clown music, literally cue the clown music, because we were fishing the fall run. All of a sudden, we're driving to go up to the spot. We look in the water, and there's a squirrel scurrying across the water to go across the river. My client's like, and the thing's just coming towards us. And I'm like, and client's like, can I grab him? Can I grab him? And we're like, no. And all of a sudden he grabs him. And I was like, he pulls this squirrel on the boat, and he's got this squirrel like in his lap. So he's like taking care of this thing. And I'm like, what the hell are you going to do with the squirrel? We got like 4 more hours of a charter. And he's taking care of it. And like all of a sudden he's fishing, and like on his, you know, he's sitting down, and on his lap or like in his like hoodie is this squirrel with his head popped out. And he's casting the dock, working it, and bam, gets hit by a good striper, and he's reeling it in, and all of a sudden, boom, the freaking seal comes up, sideswipes it, starts running with it, and you could see the fish hanging out of its mouth, and the stripe and the dock hanging right out of its fucking mouth as well. So we have a squirrel on the boat and a striper on board. It was we like a striper and a seal, a squirrel, striper, and seal all at once. It was like
Two
it was
mammals,
crazy. Something you'll
one
never have
fish.
see again. It was
What?
madness.
What happened to that squirrel? Did that guy take it home and like?
It was a sad story. The
Oh,
squirrel
God.
ended up dying on the
No,
boat.
I was hoping I
And
was wrong.
the squirrel ended up dying on the boat.
No,
Brought it back to the boat launch. He threw it behind like a rock in the woods.
nice,
And
nice,
said, "See you later."
nice, respectful burial.
I was like, "Oh, great!" So not only did you not bury it, but it's going to take more maggots over there and
Just
stuff.
rotting over there. Thank you.
So
Thank you for that, sir.
But yeah, it was crazy. Like I mean, the squirrel literally came in the boat. We caught a striper that got eaten by a seal, and we fought all three at the same time.
That's crazy.
Crazy.
What do you think about the whales and the wind farms? Do you think this is a like? Do you think
obviously
the wind farms are the main issue that's killing them?
I do think that is a really big issue. The wind farm, obviously, it's killing. It definitely is killing sales. The whales and sea life and stuff like that. I think it's sonar. I don't really know too much about it. So there, but the one thing everyone says is how terrible it's going to be. But about 15 years, 10, 15 years, there's going to be a lot of growth off of those wind farms. It's going to make for some pretty incredible offshore tuna fishing and, mahi fishing. It's going to bring a lot of different life in there, eventually. But I do, obviously, it sucks to see all these whales floating around and, that's a big population. Yeah. And, to say that that's not a part of it, I mean, that's just ridiculous.
Right.
Because obviously it is. But
it has to be.
Hopefully the long term. I listen. Electricity or power and whatever aside, I don't really know what benefits. If it's going to be beneficial for us, but maybe for a fishery, it might help out until they really start decomposing and then they go to the bottom. You know what I mean?
Right. Imagine.
I don't know.
Imagine all those porgies on that fucking whale carcass. Drop a diamond jig down and catch like a 28-inch fucking Florida style porgy.
You never know. Never know.
I mean, never know. Like, what's your feeling on the state of the striped bass population? Because it seems like the juvenile fish or the fish in the lower class have been, I don't know, in that lower slot class have just been getting wiped. I don't know. Yeah, what's your take on it?
So, I mean, over the past, obviously everyone knows catch and release. I love catch and release stripers. If it dies because if it's gut hooked, we're going to keep it. But like that's the only time we would keep a striper is if it's like severely bleeding. And I'm not saying anyone should do this, but definitely be a little bit more careful about what you're going to do and what you're going to take and what you can take home in your freezer. But as far as like the population, so like it's tough for me to really say this. I don't think the population is where it was. Obviously, in 2008 to like 2011 or 12, it was like insane. The fishing was even 14. It was insane.
Yeah.
And you can, anyone that had a pole and an eel or a bunker or a porgy or whatever it was, you can catch a striper. You know what I mean? And the fishing was exploding. We had great, Chesapeake numbers. We had great Hudson numbers. It was the highest it's ever been. And then obviously there was some, I do believe there was mismanagement of these fish. We were keeping more. Fishing's become a lot more popular sport than it has been. COVID, I mean, they should have, obviously it's tough to plan for COVID and stuff like that, but when they figured that the only thing they're going to be able to do is go fishing and do outdoors things, they should have adjusted everything even further. You know what I mean? But as far as making a moratorium, I would hate to see that. I would hate to see a moratorium put on for us. I'd love to see, the size limit adjusted. Personally, I mean, this is going to go. This would make it really, really tough for like captains on charter boats to really run a business and run a catch and keep business. I would love to see fish 48 inches and above only caught. And the reason why that is because most of these bigger fish, when you're fighting them, they're exerting everything that they got. You're catching grandpa and he's fighting for his life. Okay. And now you're sitting there, and I don't care if you're the best reviver in the world and you do all the proper techniques. If you fought that fish and it was his last fight, he ain't going to make it. Okay. And it's usually with those bigger fish, the fish that are like 15 to 42 inches, 43 inches, 45 inches. I think those fish have a lot more fight in them than the fish that are 48 inches, 50 inches and above. So right now with the current regulations that we have, we're keeping the 28 incher to, what is it, 34,999 or whatever it is. I don't even know. I don't keep fish anymore. So might even be 32. Is it 32?
I think they moved it down to
32.
28 to 32.
Yeah, 32. It's 32 now. See, I don't even know the regs. That's how much we literally keep them. Like, we don't keep them at all. So, I wish I like the fact that they did drop the reg a little bit and made it a little bit tougher for people to keep. But so you're keeping these smaller fish, the 28 to 32. Okay. And then you have the commercial guys that are able to keep everything 36 and above. Okay. And then you also have, discard, mortality rate discard. And I truly believe a lot of these bigger fish that are being caught, no matter how good you handle them, some are just going to die. And instead of wasting a fish like that, like wasting a 48 incher or a 51 incher that's floating, instead of wasting that fish, I'd love to see someone have the opportunity to keep that fish, harvest it, and be able to feed their family with that.
As opposed to just watching that beautiful animal float away for the
exactly.
Gulls.
I mean, it's never, I tell my clients, it's never going to go to waste. There's always crabs, there's sharks, there's, lobsters. It's going to feed a whole population of fish up here. But, obviously you'd love to see that. Yeah, you'd love to see that fish swim away or be enjoyed by somebody. So I personally love to see the limit go 48 inches and above. It's going to do a couple things. Not everybody catches 48 inches.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So for them to catch a fish like that, of course they're going to want to keep it. It's the biggest fish they've ever caught. And that's also another thing that I think might be going on a little bit more, is there might be a little bit more poaching of bigger fish, because it is the biggest fish they've ever caught. It is exciting to catch something like that. So that could be an issue. And then, so let's say you have a 34 incher or a 32 incher in your boat, 31 incher, and you kept that. But now you have this 48 incher, 49 incher that's, you caught it with your circle hook in the perfect spot. You kept it in the water the entire time, but it's just his last fight. He ain't doing anymore. He's tired. He ain't going back down. I personally think we're killing two ends of the spectrum, with the current regulations that we have. So you're killing the small ones, and you're also, not only that, you're killing bigger fish inadvertently.
Right.
So you catch them really. Now, that being said, stripers are a very, very hardy fish. I think even though some of those fish that are floating away, I think eventually they right themselves and they do go down, because honestly, driving out tuna fishing, I never see any. Driving over, like let's say we're driving back to Connecticut, I never see any stripers floating, ever. Ever. I've never seen one.
Yeah.
So I do think they eventually do right themselves most of the time, but I don't know what they're doing in 3 or 4 days from now, after you catch them, and they're doing that.
Yeah.
So that's my personal opinion on, I'd love to see it higher. But I do understand how that would kill, like, small, those party boats. And that would be the unfortunate thing that would happen, is like boats like JB, the JB tackle boat, and I had a couple conversations with Kyle about this, and he's like, Joe, my guys are here to keep fish, and we don't catch 48 inchers. Yeah. And a lot of them. We'll catch a couple here and there, but like, we're not catching a ton of them.
What if you put it at like 40?
I still think a 40-incher can get caught or it can swim away. That's the whole thing.
How about 42? It's a pretty big fish.
That's a schoolie.
Yeah, I know.
That's a schoolie.
48 is a big fucking fish, man.
It's a big fish.
But I'm fucking with you on this, dude. I'm
like,
you've actually totally convinced me that this is the way. I mean, it makes perfect sense.
Not only
and
that,
yeah, a lot of them probably do right themselves, and maybe they got ripped up too quick, and they have oxygen in their stomach or whatever it is. They have to they
get bloated,
decompress, and swim off. But
yeah, and I've done that too. I've decompressed them. I started fizzing them a couple of years ago.
Oh, really?
And it works. It does. Yeah, yeah. Because sometimes we're fishing like 30 plus feet of water, and that's the reason why is their bellies get so bloated. So you fizz them. I actually saw Newport, Rob Taylor, Newport Sport Fishing Charters. I saw him doing it, and I was like, oh man, that's a great idea. I didn't think you could do that on stripers. And he sent me a video of him doing it, and it works. It does work great. It's just the thing is like keeping that fish, in the water. You know what I mean? And when you're off of Block Island, there's sharks swimming everywhere.
Oh yeah.
I tell the guys, dive bomb them straight back in, or hit them in the face, or wake them up, and they usually shoot right down to the bottom. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that's honestly the truth. I tell them to dive bomb them like an albie, hit them it's like getting hit in the face. It's going to wake them up, and they're going to shoot right down to the bottom.
Nice.
But, and the other thing I do have to say with the 48-inch thing is you're also giving these fish a chance to spawn. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They have how many? I mean, I don't know how long it takes for a fish to get 48 inches. I should know. It's probably 30 years or something like that. 25 years. By the
time they've hit 48 inches, imagine how many offspring they produced.
That's what I mean. Those fish will have time. We don't need to do 48 inches forever, but I think this is a quick fix.
Yeah, instead
for
of
5 years, do like 5-6 years.
5 years instead of a moratorium that will put people out.
Yes. Those fit and even if you're doing a moratorium or you just make them catch and release or whatever, if you do hook a fish like that and it does die, you don't have to release it. The other thing that opens, you can catch the world record. You know what I mean? And that brings that conversation.
And that's why this is your favorite.
So, and that's an additional.
You're still coming for Greg's record. I know it.
Dude, I love Greg to death. I mean, one day I would love, obviously every day that we go out the block and we fish where we are, we have an opportunity to break it. There's monsters. I mean, last year we did, I think 26 or 27 fish over 50 pounds and like 40 fish over 50 inches last year on our charters.
Holy shit.
Yeah, we get really, really big ones. And last year, the bait of choice was like the Joe Baggs eel. We were fishing like the 14.5-inch eel. But that was the bait of choice, last year. And no joke, I caught a 64 pounder last year on that thing. I was
actually about to ask you, have you caught one over 60 and what is your PB?
My PB, so it was 54 by 32.5 inches. And it was like 70 something pounds.
That's fucking crazy.
I released it. It bottomed down my boga.
What was the girth on it?
It's like 32.5, I think.
Holy shit.
Yeah. I have the plaque somewhere in the house. I don't even know where the heck it is, but I don't remember half the shit. I'm so focused on what fish we're going to catch next.
What's
not
next,
about the previous one.
Absolutely.
You can catch all the big ones you want. It's about the next one, right?
You're only as good as your last fish.
No, you're as good as your next one.
Exactly.
The last fish don't matter. But yeah, dude, I mean,
you're so right. I've always been saying you're only as good as your last fish, but
no, it's always about the next one.
It's always about the next one. That just totally changed my mindset right there. That was fucking awesome.
Hey, you got to think about it. I mean, so I've had some people say, hey, you're never going to break your PB. Or how does it feel? You're never going to break your PB. My buddy Todd says this all the time. And I'm like, I've never thought of it that way. if I fish enough and I put myself in the right opportunity enough, I'm going to have a really, really good chance to catch something bigger. And that's the whole thing. You put yourself in the right opportunities, in the right situations, and you keep track of where you're fishing, how you're fishing, where the lizards are. You know what I mean? You do all that, you're gonna be on these fish, and that's the whole thing. Like, what makes a charter captain better than any other fisherman is time on the water.
Right.
Time on the water. That's it. And
100%.
it's not like time on the water, sitting there driving around, looking at your depth finder. It's time on the water, actually fishing, actually looking at everything, and that's what makes a good captain. A good captain is like what the guy's doing when you're fishing, and what is the next plan, and what is the backup plan,
and the backup plan to the backup plan.
Yeah. It's exactly. Always and being on those fish. So like, of course, if you have zero weather change for 5 days in a row or 7 days in a row, and the fish are in the same spot every day, you're going to look like a hero. It's the day after or the 2 days after that weather change, maybe you get a 4 or 5 inches, 6 inches of rain, and it changes the salinity in the water. Now you got to figure, okay, when that happens, these fish are going to go up or are they going to go down? Where's the bait going to go? Well, that's the whole game that you got to start playing. And that's what makes the captain the good guy, good, because you go to the first spot and either they're a hero or a dud, and then you go to the next one, and then you go to the next one. You know what I mean? How many spots do you have to go to figure it out? So time on the water, man. That's the biggest thing.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Brooklyn Fishing Club podcast. Be sure to tune in next week for my interview with Captain Bouncer Smith, who was a charter captain in Miami for 54 years. You're not even going to believe the stories this guy has. Until next time, tight lines, my friends.
Hey, don't you walk on me. Walk on me, 'cause I worship the ground.